Hey guys, it's Trafotin. Do you have any external storage like USB drives or portable hard drives? Unfortunately, with lots of external storage like USB drives or portable hard drives, your data is totally unprotected and can be accessed by anyone who just picks it up and plugs it into a computer or a phone if they have a dongle. Because what would you do if you lost such a device, and how are you going to protect it? Some devices come with software that you could use, but come on, let's be honest. Most of these demand too much trust or just flat out might not work on your operating system at all, particularly if you use Mac or Linux. The other problem is many of these programs are also upsold to you on top of your device, or the manufacturer will request more information about you. But there is an answer. If you want the assurance that you can password protect a device, VeraCrypt is the way to go. And VeraCrypt is one of the most reliable ways to guarantee your ability to not only encrypt your devices, but transfer that data to other operating systems. But do you want to know what else is seamless? This segment to our sponsor, because don't skip that ad. You won't be able to for long. YouTube's going to take away your ability to do that. Have you ever wanted to secure and collect money? I've got just the thing for you. It's got the letter R in it. Anyone know what it is? You've probably heard about it all around YouTube. It's my Monero wallet, of course. Monero is one of the few ways that you can donate to me, and it's also one of the easiest to use, most private cryptocurrencies in the world. If you give me Monero, it's actually really helpful for me because it's what I use to pay for lots of services, especially across a lot of open source services. Why, just last month, someone donated some Monero to me. I just had to migrate my wallet from my backup, but I'm totally doing this for your entertainment and not because I haven't synced my wallet in a month. Let's see how much I made with the most private crypto in the world. In dollars. What? I can't believe people use this piece of... VeraCrypt is a rewritten version of a program called TrueCrypt. Initially for Windows, TrueCrypt was exclusively for Windows users and provided a substitution for Microsoft's BitLocker full disk encryption. The TrueCrypt developers were anonymous, but seemed generally genuine in their goals and gave their source code to anybody. We'll get back to that one later. But one day, during the height of the Snowden leaks and NSA paranoia, the TrueCrypt website was replaced with a blank website with big red text demanding users stop using TrueCrypt immediately. Enter VeraCrypt, a full rewrite of TrueCrypt. The process was a large undertaking, and it was because of the source code's license was a very problematic license to develop with, and to root out any of the alleged issues that the developers presupposed. Now, the first thing you're going to have to do before you start using VeraCrypt is you need to make the consideration of whether or not VeraCrypt is the right decision for you. If you're going to share encrypted data with somebody who doesn't use the operating system you use, let's say you're a Mac user and you're giving your data to someone who is a Windows user, VeraCrypt will help maintain encryption of your data while still being fully available across all operating systems. Now, this is important because VeraCrypt isn't all that good if you only use one operating system, and only that operating system. Windows, Mac, and Linux all offer better integrated solutions for you. If you're on Windows, you can use something like BitLocker to go. If you're on Mac OS, you can use Disk Utility and then encrypt your files with encrypted APFS. And if you're on Linux, you can just use something like Encrypted Extend 4 and something like GNOME Disks. And the only cost of having to do something like BitLocker to go, or encrypted APFS, or encrypted ext4 on Linux is the cost of platform lock-in. But the other thing that I think might deter people from using VeraCrypt is VeraCrypt has no official mobile apps. Despite there being a page on their website, none of these apps are officially endorsed by VeraCrypt. Do not use any mobile app for VeraCrypt. They are all totally unofficial, not run by the VeraCrypt team, and you risk compromise or loss of your data if you do so. Cloud servers can easily sync your data across your devices or even to your mobile devices while still retaining full disk encryption. But VeraCrypt isn't all that good for something like cloud syncing. Let's say you have a Dropbox account, and let's say you have 16 gigabytes of files to store. every time you need to make changes to, let's say, one kilobyte Microsoft Word document for your files, you're going to have to upload that one giant mass of 16 gigabytes every time you sync. But let's say you get down the rabbit hole. You're ready to start using something like VeraCrypt. You have a hard drive that you want to swap across your Mac and Windows computer. What are you going to do? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to VeraCrypt's website, and you're going to download the installer and install it. Well, at least if you're the Windows user, because if you're the Mac and Linux user, there might be some extra steps. If you're a Mac user, you're going to have to install this thing called MacFuse, and this is what's going to allow macOS to mount external VeraCrypt volumes properly. And if you're on Linux, there's just lots of different packages. You got an Ubuntu, a Fedora, and just a generic package that you can use. And to install it, just run the installer if you're on Mac or Windows, or if you're on Linux, just unpack the archives and install them through your package manager. Do what you need to do. I'm not going to get into detail about it here. So here I am on the desktop, and all you're going to need is you're going to need to launch VeraCrypt through your desktop shortcut, your application launcher, or just do what you need to do to launch your device. You know, if you're on Mac, open your applications folder. It'll be right there. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create our first VeraCrypt volume, and this is what you're going to need to get started with VeraCrypt. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be presented with this window. It's going to look a little bit something like this. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to click Create Volume. And then you're going to get a window that looks a little bit like this. You're going to be presented with two options. If you're on Windows, you're going to actually get presented with three options. So let's go over some of these now. So you can create an encrypted file, and this is going to be a file that's just a blob that you can move around places. But you can also encrypt a drive. So for example, if you have a USB drive, you can encrypt that USB drive. If you have a portable hard drive, you can also encrypt that portable hard drive. But if you're on Windows, there's actually a third option here, and that's to encrypt the system partition of the Windows operating system that you're running. This is, again, only going to work on Windows. VeraCrypt is capable of being a substitute for something like BitLocker, and this is sort of a legacy thing that was carried over from TrueCrypt. But I'm going to tell you right now that doing something like that is completely not recommended. So we're going to ignore the option about encrypting your system disk, and instead we're going to focus on encrypting a partition or drive. Now, I'm going to be focusing more on the container because it's the most visual thing to show people. So you're going to be presented this option by default anyway. So let's create an encrypted file container. And all you got to do is just hit next. It's the default option. If you're going to encrypt a thumb drive, just check this option. But after this point, the menu should look exactly the same. Next, you'll be presented with the option of what kind of VeraCrypt volume you want. You can create a standard volume or a hidden volume. I'm going to create a standard volume, but I'll go over what a hidden volume is later. So let's first go over what a standard volume is. We're just going to hit next. It's pretty simple as is. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pick a location to store your VeraCrypt container. Now, a VeraCrypt container is basically a blank file. And the blank file is going to be sort of like a canvas where we're going to be storing all of our data. Think of it like a thumb drive, just in the form of a file. This is where you're going to be presented with all of your files. I've actually pre-prepared a folder for this, and I'm just going to call this, I don't know, subscribe.hc. You can actually use any extension you want. It doesn't actually matter what extension you use. HC is just a legacy extension for TrueCrypt containers. I'm just going to hit save. And you're going to get something like this. And you can store the file pretty much anywhere. You can copy it around, move it around. Heck, you can even delete it, like you would any other file. The only difference is this file is going to be the one file that stores all of your data. I'm going to hit next. And then you're going to be presented with a bunch of options. And this is the encryption options. The encryption options are basically encryption algorithms. Now, I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert on security or an expert on even mathematics in general, but they have lots of encryption algorithms here. And there's also hashing algorithms, which is just more noise added on top of the thing. I'm grossly oversimplifying encryption here, but I think most people will be fine with default settings. Just hit next. And then you're going to be presented with an option to create volume size. Now, you can have it use all available free space in your computer. I don't recommend you check this. That seems really extreme. But for simplicity's sake of the video, I'm going to create a VeraCrypt container, let's say 25 megabytes. Just something small, but just enough to get started. You'll also get a nodal notice here about how much free space is left in your computer. I'm going to hit next. And then you're going to be entering a password. Now, I will ask you, please make your password I won't say good, but I'll say long, you know. Maybe make it something that you'll probably remember, hopefully, you know. You could make it something like the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know, maybe not the whole thing. You could make it something like the Bill of Rights. I don't know why we're going onto like the American. Maybe get a quote from your favorite movie.
Come with me if you want to live.
Basically, just make sure your password is memorable and longer than 20 characters. The maximum length possible is 128. Just make it long, please, for the love of God. If you're using this for something valuable, make it something long. Now, for the purposes of this video, of course, I'm going to have to make something funny for my password. So, of course, what I'm going to say to you as the good YouTuber that I am is I'm going to tell you, subscribe to my channel. Spaces and everything. Special characters are allowed. So why not? Hey, look, it's longer than 20 characters. You're going to remember that password. Hit next. And you're going to be presented with file format options. And you're going to get a little pull down menu where you can choose here. Now, this is an option that's going to be different depending on which operating system you use. But I've actually documented on my website a big list of the pros and cons of each of these formats, especially if you use them with VeraCrypt containers. I'm on Linux, so I'm presented with the options ext2, 3, 4, and Btrfs. But I will say this right now, if you're on Linux, please do not use either the ext4 or ext3. Just use extend4 or Btrfs. Don't use these two. They're really outdated. I don't even know why they still package these. They probably still package them because there are people who have TrueCrypt containers in these formats or something. I don't know. If you're on Mac, you're going to have another option for Mac OS's APFS. And that's going to make it so you can only open your files on Mac OS. And if you're on Windows, you're not going to get anything that you see here. You're only going to get FAT, NTFS, and exFAT. But if you are a Mac user and you want to transfer files to a Windows user, for example, I would recommend using something like exFAT. Because if you're on Mac OS, mounting something like NTFS is a royal pain in the rear end. So I would just say just use exFAT if you're in doubt. If you're on FAT, that will work too, but keep in mind of FAT, you're limited to 4 gigabytes. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to pick exFAT. Now, I'm just only picking exFAT because if you store a file that's more than 4 gigabytes large, exFAT will still be able to hold it, and you can open it on a Mac and Linux with very little problems. So, we're going to hit next. And then you'll get presented the option, I will only mount this on Linux or whatever your operating system is, or I will mount this volume on other platforms. Now, of course, VeraCrypt being the cross-platform solution, I will say right now, please use this option. If you're going to check this box, I recommend please stop what you're doing right now and just learn how to use something like, encrypted extend4 or Btrfs. So I'll just hit next. And then you'll be presented with this warning that says, please note that the volume will not be formatted with the FAT file system, and therefore you may be required to install additional file system drivers on platforms other than Linux, which will enable you to mount the volume, except it's exFAT, and it'll just work everywhere. It's an outdated statement. But okay. And now you get the fun part. You get to move your mouse around the window completely randomly, but only within the window. And all you gotta do is just, it looks ridiculous, I'm sure. But all you gotta do is you just gotta shake your mouse around, like so. While this bar right here slowly fills up. And you're probably wondering, well, what is this bar actually doing? You'll notice there's a little thing right here that just says display. It's cut off by my display, but you click it, and you'll see that it's actually having VeraCrypt generate random letters and numbers. And these letters and numbers are just gonna help pad out your password a little bit. And all you gotta do is you just gotta shake the mouse and keep shaking that mouse. You gotta make sure this bar is filled up all the way because it increases the cryptographic strength of those encryption keys. Because look at all of these letters that just get randomly generated. And then you're going to have to enter your administrative password, especially if you're going to be using VeraCrypt with a thumb drive or a portable hard drive. You are definitely going to have to do something like this. And then you'll be presented with this pop-up menu that says, VeraCrypt volume has successfully been created. And you just click OK. It has now been created for use. If you'd want to create another one, click Next. And I do. So why don't we do that right now? Now, remember how I said earlier we're going to talk about hidden volumes? So why don't we take the time right now to talk about hidden volumes. So hidden volumes can be done on either a file or a thumb drive. So we're just going to do a file. Now, first things first, you're going to select the hidden volume file. And you'll notice the text below says, it may happen that you are forced by somebody to reveal your password. And you're like, what does that mean? You know, let's say you are hit in the head with a wrench, you know, and they tie you up with a rubber hose. You know, or let's say someone finds your file and they ask you to open it, or they you know, gun to the head kind of situation. You know, I sincerely hope that most of you are not in this situation like that, and if you are, please get out of that situation as soon as possible. In this case, what would you do? And this is where the VeraCrypt hidden volumes come in. Now, VeraCrypt hidden volumes are basically a way of having decoy files. So you can have decoy files that serve as a way to placate the person on the other end, so to speak. Hidden files have a lot of maintenance and are probably only for people with incredibly high threat models. If you are just your average Joe who wants to encrypt your USB thumb drives, you probably don't even need to bother with this at all. You can probably skip to the next chapter of this video if you're on whatever platform you're watching this on. And then we're going to create a new file. Oh, lucky me, because I already created one. I have one right here. So why don't I say hit the bell? Because you better hit that notification bell. Alright, we're going to hit next. Basically, you go through the same process as earlier. And it's going to give you the same thing, but you'll notice that it says outer volume here. When they say outer volume is your decoy files. And when they say inner volume is your real files. So we're going to hit next, because I don't know anything about encryption. And then I'm going to allocate some more size. This time I'm going to do, I want to do 100 megabytes. I'll show you why I'm doing 100 megabytes, just so we can explain this a little easier later. We're going to hit next. And then we're going to make a new password. I'm just going to probably say, this is totally a real password. You know, because this is your decoy password. So, you know, be sure to remember something like your decoy password in a pinch. This is totally a real password. Yeah, obviously. And you're presented with an option. We'll just do fat. Why not? Then you're presented with this option again to shake your mouse around the screen. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to skip this right now, but if you are doing this for a real device, please, please, please let this loading bar get filled up all the way. It increases the encryption of your device and it is good for you. Okay, thank you. And now this is the outer volume. And the outer volume is where you should copy your sensitive-looking documents. Sensitive-looking documents? Trafotin, what do you mean by that? Sensitive-looking documents, you know, is something that someone would reasonably think is something that's encrypted, you know? If someone's threatening you, obviously they have some supposition about what the files are like on the inside. They just can't open them without your help. So let's go over this right now. You get presented with a menu here where you can open your files. Let me open a new virtual desktop here. I'm going to ask you to use your imagination, okay? You know, imagine for a minute with me that we have a file in here, you know? Especially if you're going to be putting files in here, try to give some examples of decoy files that you can put in here. So the first kind of decoy file that I can think of is maybe like your bank statements, you know? Put your bank statements in here, you know? Your bank sends you a statement in the mail every month. I think that in the mail. I mean, in today's day and age, they send it to you over the computer. So just download your bank statements, you know, upload them to your VeraCrypt hidden volume. You know, I'm sure, you know, I would hope that most people would like to secure their financial information. But there's also another alternative. You know, let's say you want to keep something extra secret. You know, what's another thing that someone would want to reasonably keep extra secret? Well, I actually do have maybe a weird answer for this one. And it's, you probably want to have something like, say, a journal. You know, let's say you have a Microsoft Office document, you know, and let's say you want to write about things that you do every week or so. You know, you can say like, on Monday, I went to the grocery store and got some magazines. Get your head out of the gutter. And then you put this in and you can save this to your file. Now we've got, you know, you can put your bank statements, you can put your diary in here. But I think of all that being said, I think let's just not beat around the bush this time. I think let's put in here what I think most people would imagine putting into something like this. Because when I said earlier something compromising, let's of course put in some photos. And I think you know what kind of variety of photos that I'm thinking of right now. Especially if you don't want people to know that you are looking at said photos. You know, maybe you have a certain anime that you would like to watch every now and again. You know, maybe put it in here, you know? Something nice and realistic. Now it's going to say the hidden volume has now been scanned and your decoy files have been saved. You can go back and edit your hidden files later in the menu, and I'll show you how to do that. So next, now this is your real files, okay? Your hidden volume. Like I said before, we're going to follow the same procedure again, you know, and you can also pick the maximum size. So for example, all the files that I stored in there was 98.4 megabytes, but maybe you want to leave extra space for the files that you want to update there. So let's say I want to do like 90 megabytes. That leaves us 8 megabytes for us to store more files. You could even go as far to do like 60, but obviously when you use something like a hidden volume, and why I would recommend if you're like not a high threat model, you're doing something like this, please don't use like anything like a hidden volume. It just eats up more space than is probably necessary. Okay, you're gonna hit next. Warning, if you add more data or files in the future, you should consider using a smaller size for the hidden volume. And because again, you're going to be filling in that extra space. Are you sure you would like to continue the size you specified? Yes. And now the other reason they do this is because if you are not careful and check the options in the menu, you will be deleting files in your hidden volume. The person on the other end, so to speak, might have the ability to, you know, try to verify this. So they try to dump more files into the hidden volume. But doing so in the process will actually delete your precious files. You're probably like, well, that seems really dumb. But I say better safe than sorry in that situation. Are you sure you'd like to continue the size you specified? Yes. And you enter in your good password. So I'm going to say totally good password. See? Totally good password. And make you type it in again for good measure. Hit next. Next. And then you do the game and shake your mouse around again. If you're doing this for real, please actually fill the bar up all the way and don't do what I'm going to do and just skip all this altogether. Okay, format. The hidden volume has been created for use. Please, if you do not protect the hidden volume, do not write to the outer volume or you will overwrite files in your hidden volume. Basically, if you add more decoy files, you need to check an extra box. Also, your data might get deleted. Okay? As if you were already formatting thumb drives and whatnot was already really weird. Okay. And that's it. We got 2 VeraCrypt files that we can test for experimentation. So here in my pre-prepared folder, you know, your file menu, so to speak, you're going to get 2 files. So remember earlier, I have my subscribe file, which is the normal VeraCrypt volume, and the hit the bell file, which is a hidden volume. So we're going to do subscribe as just a normal file. Actually, let's just do hit the bell. It's easier to show this. So do, and then once you click it here, make sure you click a number here. If you're on Windows, you're going to click a letter instead. So if you're on Windows, the C drive will be here somewhere, and you just cannot use that because Windows. This is how it is. All right, I'm going to pick a drive and you click 1. Then you click mount to mount. And then you'll be presented with this option. So let's say you're forced to open the thing. So I'm going to type in whatever, I don't remember what it is. Totally good password. And then VeraCrypt's gonna get thinking. It might also ask for your root password here. I also probably got this wrong. Oh, I didn't. Here we go. And then here's where you would store all of your actual files. You'll notice the files that I created earlier are not there. So one of the things you can do now is you can just go into here, you can double click it, and then you can just, add files to it here. You can even add like folders. Let's say you want to create a folder. You can create folders and add them here as well. Pretty much it's like a thumb drive, just in digital form. And now the other thing too is, let's try this all over again. So if you want to hit mount, and let's say that you are using a hidden volume, you're going to want to protect hidden volume against damage. And then if you want to edit the files in your hidden volume, you would enter in the password to your real file here and enter in your decoy password here. So that way you can edit your decoy files and not get all of your data deleted. I cannot believe they hide this behind this options button, but, you know, I would hope that most people aren't using something like a hidden volume. The next thing that I like to show is mounting a device. So, for example, right now is I actually store all of my channel archives in a portable hard drive. So if I select a device here, now if you're on Windows or Mac, this is going to look a little different for you, but you're going to pick the device here and you can usually identify it by storage. So for example, my device is this one, /dev SDA. And you mount it, and then you're going to enter in your password. And once you enter in your password, it's pretty much your standard affair, and it's basically identical. So if you want to open a normal VeraCrypt container, like say this fake one that I created here, you can create a folder here. But if I want to open a drive, like say the one that holds all of my channel archives and stuff, you can get access to something like it here. Of course, I think this all goes without saying, you've probably noticed that I did it earlier. Well, what do you do if you want to remove these files? Well, normally what's going to happen is, let's say you lost power, you know? VeraCrypt is so cool because what it does is it transparently decrypts the files, meaning it just writes everything to different places in real time in a way that it's really seamless. So as long as your files correctly, let's say I want to drag a let's say this DaVinci Resolve file. I want to dump it into here. It's going to seamlessly put it into the other container, and it's going to copy it the same way you would a thumb drive. As long as the copying was complete, it ends up where it's supposed to. So if you lost power or whatever, or let's say your computer borked and had some weird problem, the file will always make it to its destination, pretty much. As long as you know, copying, nothing went wrong with the copying or your hard drive, blah, blah, blah. But you're probably wondering, well, like USB drives, you know, USB drives are presented like an eject option. Especially if you're on Windows, Mac, Linux, you get presented with an option to eject it. So how do you eject volumes like this? Well, you'll notice in the VeraCrypt menu here, you're presented with the option to dismount, because it changes mount to dismount. And if you press dismount, what this will do is this will dismount your VeraCrypt container. Now, it's not letting me dismount it because I have the folder open. So sometimes you might have to close all the windows that have that folder open. If you're editing a file, you might have to close those as well. Hit dismount, boom, dismounted, your file's encrypted, we're all good. And if you have multiple devices like I did just here, you can click dismount and dismount all of them. It's very busy. For some reason on my drive, I have to do it like twice, I'm not sure why. But in a nutshell, that's VeraCrypt. This is all you need to do to use something like VeraCrypt. If you're on Mac and Windows, I'm sorry, it doesn't respect dark theme. I'm pretty sure it doesn't respect dark theme anyway. So I'm sincerely sorry, but that's VeraCrypt in a nutshell. It's a very interesting program, I think. But if you want a better way, look, I don't know of a better way that you can use to encrypt external storage. And if you want the best way to encrypt storage across Windows, Mac, and Linux and have them open uniformly on each one, I think VeraCrypt is the best option out there. So now that we've made it this far, no, it's been a whole lot, why don't you go leave a like on this video? Leave a like on this video if you have any favorite anime that, you know, you'd like to tell me about that you're going to store in that outer volume of yours. I also have pages on my website where you can go and view transcripts of every video that I've ever made, and also some little extra tidbits of information that I felt were a bit extreme for the video. So things like key files or, you know, PIM hashing and VeraCrypt are also there as well if you're interested. And as always, if you want to support me, you can always just donate me money or Monero crypto, and I'll make sure it gets to good use. By that I mean my my hooker fund. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll see all of you guys next time. Have a great rest of your week.